So before we dive in, we'll just take another look at the calendar. Today is class number 8. We talk about errors and possibility theorem and the idea of ranking instead of just picking a single winner. Maybe we want to know, well, who would have gotten second place or who would have gotten third place? So those are the two main topics for today. At the end of today, this will be the end of our 4th day on voting theory. It's our last day on voting theory. And then on Thursday, we have our review. And then on Tuesday, 1 week from today, we have our first test. Any questions about the schedule? Yes?
Are we going to have homework on Thursday? That whole weekend for the test?
Good question. There will be no homework assigned on Thursday. Your homework is to study for the test. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. So on page 34, we'll start up here at number 1. Can we go to Becca?
Summarize, we've seen 4 different methods to count votes and 4 different criteria to decide if the vote counting is fair.
Okay, so the 4 different vote counting methods are the plurality method, Boredom, plurality with elimination, and the method of pairwise comparisons. That was our one track over here to try to pick a winner. I'm hoping that by the time we get to the test, you guys are comfortable with all 4 of those vote counting methods, and I could give you a preference schedule like that, and I could say who wins using plurality, who wins using Boredom, and you're able to do all the calculations for me. And then that was the one track, and the other track were the 4 methods to the 4 fairness criteria to see if the vote counting methods are fair. And so we had the majority criterion, the Condorcet criterion, the really hard one to pronounce, the monotonicity criterion, and then finally, independence of irrelevant alternatives criterion. And I'm hoping that you can say something intelligent that I ask you on the test. Does this preference schedule violate the monotonicity criterion? What criterion does this particular scenario relate to? The kinds of questions you can expect to see are the same kinds of questions that we've been seeing in the group activities at the end of every class. Like the phrasing will be the same, and I'm hoping that that we get to a place where we got these 2 different tracks, but a good handle on both sets, 4 things on the one side and 4 things on the other. Okay, so let's go to Maggie for 2. Okay, Zach? Zach, can you say that again?
There's no voting method using preference balance that will always satisfy all criteria.
Okay, so we have seen how many different vote counting methods? We've seen 4. And in fact, we even talked about some other ones like approval voting. We mentioned that one. And we looked at that election they did in France, which was like a 2-round system. So we've seen a few more, but 4 are the only ones that I'm going to ask you for on the test. And we've seen that each of these 4 breaks down somewhere in this list of fairness criteria, right? None of our methods satisfied all the fairness criteria. So we might be asking ourselves, well, let's keep looking. Let's come up with some crazy way to count the votes that will satisfy all 4 of these things. And it turns out, by this very famous theorem, there's no vote counting method that will always satisfy all 4 of the fairness criteria. And this is kind of a big deal. It's not saying that we just haven't found it yet, and that maybe if we just had another 50 years of human ingenuity, that we would eventually be clever enough to come up with some vote counting method that would be perfect. It's saying no such method exists. That's the theorem. Doesn't matter how long we look, doesn't matter how hard we try, and it doesn't matter how smart we are, there will never be a vote counting method that satisfies those 4 fairness criteria. Okay, let's go to Henry for the this is surprising part. Yeah, that's kind of a big deal, isn't it? Like that there's just no way to be fair all the time. No matter how you decide to conduct an election, we cannot be consistently fair. Emma, we'll go to number 3. Okay, and Becca? I'm sorry, not Becca, Holly.
It does mean we have to look at trade-offs.
Okay, thank you. You moved seats, so I forgot your name. What is it? Yes, Justin. Go ahead. Does that seem reasonable? We'd like to come up with some way to count the votes so that it's never in anyone's best interest to vote insincerely. And we had a few people admit in class that they have voted insincerely because the person they thought was the best had no chance of winning, right? So you throw your vote to somebody else hoping you get a better outcome, and you don't really vote with your heart. So maybe there's some method out there that we can count the votes so that nobody will ever be inclined to vote insincerely. We'll go to Jocelyn. Sure.
His name is
Mhm.
Zero. Basically says it's basically impossible. There are only two kinds of systems that aren't horrible practical voting. Dictatorship and random systems.
Okay, so if I tell you going into an election that we're going to count the votes using the plurality method, then some of you might vote insincerely because you think your person has no chance of winning, so you'll throw your votes to somebody else. If instead I were to tell you that we're going to count the votes using the Boredom Method, you again might vote insincerely. You might vote differently than if we're doing the plurality method. But if I tell you what the voting method is, then you can change your strategy one way or the other to try to get the best outcome for you, even if you're not really voting with your heart. And it turns out that there's no way for me to eliminate tactical voting. There's no way for me to get rid of insincere voting, except for these two really silly systems. Number one is a dictatorship, where one person has all the power, and it is then in that person's best interest to vote sincerely, and it doesn't matter how the rest of us vote. Agree? Okay, so there's there's one benefit to a dictatorship. There are not a lot of other benefits to dictatorships. And this idea of random systems, well, suppose we conduct an election, but I don't tell you how we're going to count the votes. I don't tell you if it's going to be Borda or pairwise comparison or what. Then you can't know how to kind of make your vote strategically the best. Does that make sense? Like you know, if I tell you it's plurality, you might vote one way. If I say it's Borda, you might vote a different way. The only way for me to eliminate strategic voting is to not tell you how I'm going to count the votes, and that doesn't really seem fair either. Johannes? Okay. All right. So we can't get rid of tactical voting, but we can try to reduce it. Come up with some. Well, so
Thinking about it, voting a plurality vote or a majority vote, or votes in order, then the person that you voted for in the first place probably not whatever. It's sort of kind of like a pattern code you have to let somebody you have to keep them somewhat enough information to base before you talk about the results.
yeah, I mean, in theory, I want you to vote with your heart. I want you to rank these four candidates in the order that you think is best. But in practice, if you know that we're using the Boredom method and you think that your top candidate has no chance of winning using the Boredom method, you might change the order of your votes. You might take this person that you like really don't want to win, but they're better than the person you really don't want to win. You might bump them up on your preference schedule. And so how you bump them up would be different if we were doing Borda versus how you bump them up if we're doing pairwise comparisons. And so the only way to eliminate this idea of like strategic voting is for me to not tell you which method I'm using to count the votes. And then you can't really like plan accordingly. Any other thoughts on this strategic voting stuff? Okay, let's go to number 5, Sam. Go ahead. Keep going. Does that seem reasonable? Oh, let's hold on. Let's pause for 1 second. Does this Condorcet loser thing seem reasonable? If somebody loses to every other candidate head to head, then they should not win the election. Fair? we can make a preference schedule with 3 people in it and use the plurality method and find a winner, even though that person lost to everybody head to head. So that's a violation. The plurality method violates this Condorcet loser criterion. Let's go to Hillary for the clone one. Does that seem reasonable? Whether you have one copy of a person or they have their twin sibling in the race shouldn't affect, right? Whether they win or whether this person wins or loses should not be affected, right? It's kind of a weird thing to even think about. I mean, this whole it's like a science fiction type thing almost. Yeah, so when would it happen? Well, in some elections you have 2 candidates that are, like it used to be that I think that a lot of folks in the 2 main parties used to be sort of further apart than they are, and sometimes we go through periods of time where it's kind of hard to tell which party a candidate is in, like the lines have sort of blurred, I think, sometimes. So you're never going to have a clone in 2 different clones in a race, but you could have 2 candidates that are quite similar to each other, right? So let me give you an example. Suppose we have exactly the same person, like really exactly the same person. And suppose that we're going to conduct a plurality election, so just first place votes. So you got this person in the election and then their twin brother. Does having the twin brother in the election make it better or worse for the original person?
Worse.
Why is it worse?
Because the votes are diluted between them.
Yes. Agree? So if you're in the election and your twin comes in, that makes it worse for you. Because whoever likes you is also going to like your twin, and we can only vote for a first place person. So that's a problem with the plurality method, is that if you have 2 candidates that are very similar to each other, it could be that most of us really like these 2 candidates, but we kind of split our vote, and somebody else that we didn't really like, who didn't have a split, like a diluted thing, can kind of come up and pass. That's a problem. Okay, let's think of an example where having your clone in the race would help you. Suppose we're doing the Boredom Method. Suppose there are 4 candidates. How many points is a first place vote worth? 4 points. Okay, suppose that I'm running and you guys think I'm awesome and you give me your first place votes. That's 4 points for me, right? Now suppose my twin brother comes in. Now how many candidates are in the race? Now there's 5. You're going to vote for me first. How many points did you just give me? 5. How many points did you give my brother? Because you think he's second best. It's the same as me. Gave him 4. And all of a sudden, other people that were at 3, 2, and 1, they're not just contending with my 4, they're also, I have 5 points now and my brother has 4. So both of us being in the race actually helps us by keeping everybody else down here. Does that make sense? That's another problem. You shouldn't be helped because your clone is in the race either. Let's go to the last one, the participation stuff. Brian? Do you guys agree that we don't want a system where not voting is your best option? Have you guys ever been in like a town hall meeting where there's like a certain percentage of the town needs to vote, otherwise you can't vote? So like a lot of towns, they have this once a year annual town meeting and they vote on stuff related to the town. And so suppose that, like 5% of the population needs to show up, otherwise you can't have the vote. So let's say that you're in this vote, and so there's lots of debating happening on some issue, and it's clear that the way the vote is going to go is not how you want it to go, right? You're in there, and it's clear that the majority of people think something different than you. Now, let's suppose that we're right around that border. Let's suppose we need 100 people to vote, and you are person 100 in that room. What would you do? Good filibuster? What if you just don't vote? If there's not 100 votes to be tallied, then the vote can't happen. So instead of saying, I am against this thing, and the rest of the room is for it, and it passes, you could just say, I'm not going to vote. And then we don't have enough people in here to vote, and we'll have to come back to this another time. That seems like a weakness of any kind of a thing requiring a quorum. Johannes?
I'm thinking about the board account method as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because with the board account method, whatever you do, you will always award a certain amount of points to each candidate. So if you don't vote, you don't have to give them votes to anyone. So I feel like one candidate is really, really flat.
Mm-hmm. Right, and you're forced to give them a point even if you put them last. Yeah, good. Okay, conclusions. We are going to Doug for 6. So those are our conclusions. Somewhat unsatisfying, in my opinion, that there's nothing out there that's perfect. We've analyzed a lot of systems. They have pros, they have cons, they all have cons, is kind of the overall conclusion here. And pairwise comparisons might be the fairest thing that we can do. Certainly, it's a lot better than the plurality method if you think that our 4 fairness criteria are reasonable. Okay, let's jump to 7. This is our second topic for today. Zach? Good. So we're going to look at 2 different ways to rank candidates. Again, the idea is not just to find the winner, but to say, well, who is second place and who is third place? 2 different methods. The first methods are the easier ones. They are called extended methods. You'll see why we use that name in a minute, but let's give it a shot. Here's the preference schedule. Can you guys conduct a plurality method to find the winner at your table? Okay, so plurality only counts what? First place votes. So I've got 10, 4, 8, and 3 first place votes. Who wins? A wins. But now we're looking for who is second place, and is there a natural second place choice here? C is natural. And who is third place? B. And then finally, D is last. Any questions about how to rank these candidates using the extended plurality method? You just rank them in the natural way, right? Like everybody, like I didn't even say how would you rank them. Everybody just pick that ranking because that's the natural thing to do. And so maybe we can see why we call this an extended method. You just run the election regular, and then instead of finding just the winner, you extend the results in the natural way, okay? All right, let's try pairwise comparisons. So forget about the ranking stuff, but at the moment, can you guys in your groups find the winner, do all 6 comparisons? Actually, all 6 comparisons. Mm-hmm. Right, so if we're looking at A versus B, so if we're looking at A versus B, we just look at every column and we award it to either A or B. So I'm going to give A the yellow ones. So who wins the third column between A and B? B wins that one because B is above. Who wins this column? Yeah, I mean, B is above A there, so B wins that one. B is above here, so B wins that one, and then B is above here. So B gets all of these. So yellow 10 for A, and then the other 15 is for B. You're welcome. Any questions on these numbers? Okay, we didn't quite finish, but we're almost finished with this one. Remember, you have to award points at the end. That's how we find our winner. Every time somebody wins a head-to-head, what do we award them? 1 point. What if it's a tie? Half a point. And if you lose, 0. So let's award points to our winners. So I'm circling the winners in each head-to-head, and every circled person gets a point. A, B, C, and D. How many points did A get? Altogether, A has 1 victory, 1 point. B has 3 victories. C has 2, and poor D, 0. And then can you rank the candidates? Who's the winner? B is the winner, so that's old. but then you can rank them in a natural way. Who is the second place person? C has the second most number of points. Third is A. Fourth is D. C and D had the same rankings, and it looks like A and B swapped. First and third place swapped. Questions on that one? Okay, so if we're ready, we'll move on to the next page. Plurality with elimination. Okay, the first step of this. Are we okay right now in the back? Hillary? Oh, okay. So we're doing the top one, the plurality with elimination. The first step is just the plurality numbers, which are the same as they were before. Somebody refresh my memory. It was 10, 4, and 4, 8, 3. That's what we had before. Okay, so we did that before. When we're doing plurality with elimination, we need to find somebody that has a majority of the first place votes. How many votes are there total? It's 25. So we need a majority of 25. And a majority of 25 is 13. Does anybody have a majority right now? No. So we eliminate somebody. Who gets eliminated? D, of course. D has been like last in everything so far this election. So we will eliminate D. And then we go back to our preference schedule, which unfortunately is on the previous page. And we look at the 3 votes that D had. These 3 votes right here. We were only looking at first place votes, so that column is the only one that matters. So yeah, D doesn't get these votes anymore. They go to the next person on the list. So those 3 votes are going to C now. Questions on that? So let's add 3 to C's score, and I think everybody else stays the same. A, B, and C. D is out. A and B are still stuck at 10 and 4. C now bumps up to 11. D is done. And then we ask the same question. Do we have a majority? No. So we need to eliminate. And in this case, we eliminate D. With the fewest number of first place votes, they go away. And then we look at the schedule again and update. And in this case, it's these votes right here. No longer go to B, they go to C. Are there questions on why we gravitated towards that column? Because like we ignored most information in this table. So if you understand why, then it's clear. It's first place votes. And the only one, that's right. And that's the only place where B had any first place votes. That's the only thing that's going to be affected here. So we're going to give C another 4 votes. And so we get, what do we get here? A and C. And A is still stuck at 10. And how about C? Is now at 15. And as a quick check, every time you add the number of votes, what do you get? 25. Doesn't matter where you are. You have 25 people. They need to be represented. Do we have a majority? Yes. So we have our winner. So now we are ready to rank. Who is our winner? C. Who is our second place? Is A. By making it to the finals, they lost, but at least they made it longer than anybody else. And then B, by being eliminated last. And then D, by being eliminated first, is our least favorite person. Becca. It's a good question. If we have two people that are tied, then we better have some tie-breaking scheme in place beforehand. In this case, it couldn't happen because we have 25 voters. But if you have an even number of voters, it's a concern. I won't ask you to like make something up. I could say if there's a tie, then use the Boredom method to break the tie. Yeah.
There's a reason we have 9 people in Supreme Court.
Yeah, that avoids the tie. You know, it's interesting, but we have the presidential election coming up, and we will talk after the test about the Electoral College. But this is how we elect a president, right? Is these Electoral College points or votes? Anybody know how many Electoral College votes there are in total? It's okay if you don't have the number memorized. It's 538. If you add up all the points for all of the states, you get 538. Is that good or bad in terms of the possibility of ties? That is bad. Hasn't happened, but it could. That's an even number. If we had an odd number of electoral points, there would be never any chance for a tie, but it could happen.
It's 438 from the House of Representatives and the House of Senate.
Correct. That's right. Okay, Boredom method. Can you guys share the work and try to do the Boredom method for that same table? Okay, so we've got our Boredom points listed up here. Just takes a little time, and it's also a lot of detail. So just be careful as you're doing this on a test that you check all the different numbers. And so can I give you guys a couple of hints to maybe catch some mistakes on a test using this Boredom method? Because I would say this is the one where there's like more detail than anybody else. Okay, so a couple of hints for the Boredom method. First of all, if you write it this way, then you know, like first place votes are always 4, second place votes are always 3. Like I put those things down first because that has nothing to do with the table. I just put my points there. There's enough numbers in here to, you know, like it's easy to get confused. So I just put those ones up there because they're fixed. But take a look at this. How much is 10 plus 0 plus 4 plus 11? That's 25. Of course it's 25. Because that's how many first place votes A had, second place votes, third place votes, and last place votes. It must be 25. So you might be able to catch a mistake someplace if you just double check that the numbers in front of the 4, 3, 2, 1 add up to 25, every row. Okay, here is a fancy way to check, and this is actually a really quick way to check. Suppose that we just look at one voter. How many points does that one voter give to the first place candidate? 4. And to the second place? 3. And to the third place? 2. And to the last place? 1. How many points does one person give to everybody? It's 10. 4 plus 3 plus 2 plus 1. Yes? Every single voter is going to give 10 points collectively. How many voters were there? There were 25 voters. So if 25 voters are giving 10 points each, then how many points are out there? 250. If you add up those numbers and you get something other than 250, you made a mistake. If you get 250, you probably did it right. Does that make sense? It's like, I mean, it can't be any quicker. Like you add them up and it should be 10 times the number of voters. Now that 10 times is only because we had 4 candidates. If we had a 5th candidate, then how many points does one person give out? It's not 11, it's actually 15. Because first place is now 5, plus 4, plus 3, plus 2, plus 1. So, I don't know. It's not something you need to memorize, but if you like to check your work, it's a nice way to check your work.
What if we run out of time on the test? Do we have an hour, right?
I will give you an hour and 15 minutes for the test. It's written to be an hour long. We can go, we can stay here a little bit longer. I don't think there's a class coming in right after us. Yeah, so we should be okay in terms of time. Okay, who's the first place person here? Okay, so C is the winner, no problem. But if we wanted to find the second place person, B, you rank them in the natural way. C, B, A, and D. Any questions on ranking using the Boredom method? Okay, and I just want to point out that we ranked candidates using all 4 of the things on this track. Can you just take a quick look and compare the 4 rankings? Were any of them the same? No. All 4 rankings give us 4 different sets of placeholders. So which is the best? Which is the most fair? I don't know, but just recognize that how you count the votes has a significant impact on how the election results end up. Okay, let's try number 9. Where are we now? Are we up to Brittany? Okay, we'll go to Kelly. Okay, new idea, new way to count the votes, new way to find the winner and the second place and the third place. We're going to do something called recursive. Okay, we'll start with plurality. By the way, you're going to like recursive a lot less than you liked extended. I'm just putting it out there. So don't throw anything my way. I'm giving you fair warning that this is not as natural as the extended methods. That's exactly what we do. Yes, it's exactly what Ashley said. Find the winner, take them out, do it again. That is every recursive method we're about to do. Let's give it a shot. Recursive plurality. Okay, plurality is the same as it's always been. It's the same election, so it's the same numbers. So what do we have here? It was 10 for 8 and 3. Who just won the election? Okay, so we say A wins. And by virtue of winning the election, their place is assured. It is fixed. And so as Ashley points out, we eliminate them. We're done with them. We're not looking at the 4, 8, 3 anymore. These numbers are irrelevant. I don't care who came in second. I just wanted a winner. A wins. A is happily eliminated. So let's eliminate A. So I'm not going to cross A off in the normal way. We're going to give A a happy reason to go away. So all of the A's disappear. And now this is a brand new election with how many candidates? 3. And now we're going to count the votes using plurality. First place votes only. Now I don't have A anymore, so we've got B, C, and D. Who gets the first column, first place? That's B. Who gets the next column? Those belong to D. And then everything else is in the top row. So count the votes again, first place only. And double check my work. I got a 10, 8, and 7. Questions on where these numbers came from? Who's the winner? B is the winner. And by winning, what did B really win? Yeah, B just won second place. If we were just doing it the extended way, where you only do the election one time, who would have gotten second? Who had the second most number of votes? C. It's different, right? It's just different. I'm not saying it's good or bad, just pointing it out. It's different. And by winning, B's place is now assured. So what do? We get rid of B for a good reason. So let's get rid of B. So all the B's go away. And now how many candidates are in this brand new election? Just 2. So in this brand new election, round 3, we have C and we have D. I get 1411. Is that right? No, I did not get 1411. Maybe I should just yell out when I'm wrong. All right, so what's the right thing here? 18 to 7? Is that better? So I'll highlight first place votes only. I will highlight anytime C gets the first place vote. In that column, that's C. Who gets the next column? That's D by being first place now. C is in that column, C is there, and then D gets the last one. So add up those green numbers and we get 18 votes for C. Who just won the election? C just won the election. And by winning, what did they really win? They just won 3rd place. Okay, and technically, what should we do at this point? I'm not ready to rank them officially. What should we do at this point? Shouldn't we get rid of C? C's position is assured. Who's left if we get rid of C? D. How many votes does D get? All 25. Well done. So D wins 4th place by default. Okay, I don't need to see you do that. I'm with Johannes. Let's just rank them. So what did we say? A was the real winner, B won 2nd, C won 3rd, and D won 4th place. It produced a different result, didn't it? Right?
The advantage it has is that like there's more representation going on because you count people more.
Yeah, we did.
So, like, you just disqualify the votes. All of them.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. Like if we just do plurality, we only look at the first row. But you could see we looked at a lot more than the first row in this process. So I like Johannes's way of saying it. But but Jason points out it gave us a different outcome. Different, I think, than have we seen that? No, we haven't seen that for any of the methods. That's different than all 4 of the things we did up above. Okay, let's try recursive pairwise comparisons. All right, good news is the work has already been done for us. It's the same. We're skipping which one? Skip B? No, this one's easy. It's easy actually. Only because we did it. We did it already. What was the score? Somebody just has to tell me the score. We did it. Okay, so AB was 1015 and AC was also 1015. And then AD 1411 and then BC and BD and then poor D 18 to 7. Okay, so we did all the work already for that one. That was all the head-to-heads. And then I think we circled the winners just to figure out who was getting the points. We have to award a point for every victory. So in terms of the points, and again, we did this too. How many points did A get? Just the 1. How many points does B have? 3. C won twice, and D didn't win anything. So who's the winner still? B. B won this method before. So we say B wins. But by virtue of winning, we get to eliminate them. But we don't need to recalculate stuff. All we have to do is say, well, anything with a B in it is irrelevant. Cross off the B's. And we have a new list of pairwise comparisons. And we need to give points again. A, C, D. How many points does A have in this new list? Just the one. How many points does C have? 2. How many points does D have? Still 0.
Easy way on that one is B1 pairs.
That's true. That's true. It feels like these are just the same numbers that we had before, doesn't it?
Yeah.
We have this. Isn't that the same 1, 2, and 0 that we saw before? In this example, it is the same, but it's for a good reason that Jason just pointed out. The reason it's the same is that B beat everybody else. Suppose that B had lost to A before. Suppose that B had lost to A. All right, so A has a point for beating B, right? If we eliminate B, what happens to A's score? If we eliminate B, which was a point, it was a victory for A, it would go down, right? If A has a point here because it beat B, but then we get rid of B, all of a sudden A score is worse. So yes, it's true the numbers stayed the same, and yes, it seems pointless. But it's really only because, as Jason points out, nobody got any points from B being in the election anyway, because B beat everybody in the first place. Who wins second place?
Nobody gained any in the second.
Yeah, nobody gained any, nobody lost any either. All right, so who gets second place here? So this is now C wins second. And so we will eliminate C. And so we just have A and D left, which is just this single head-to-head that's not crossed off yet. Who gets the point? A gets the point, or D stuck at 0. So A wins third.
Could we have eliminated B to begin with?
Certainly D is going to end up being last no matter what we do. Yeah, good observation. What's our ranking here? B, C, A, D. And that one stayed the same. I think partly because B beat everybody. Okay, let's go to the next page. I'm going to come back to C in just a moment, but at least let's read D. And Ashley, I'm sorry I skipped you in terms of the reading. Can we read D on the next page? Oh, all right. If you don't want to read, we'll skip. Johannes.
The Boredom Method,
Yes.
that has to be
No, above.
the Boredom Method. Really big because the first one.
So I'm just pointing out, you're going to do your board account. You'll get the same board of scores that we got before. I will pull them up here. Not there. Here. You're going to get the same board of points you got before. Who wins first place? C, just like before. But it's not as simple as just saying, okay, and then 68 points is second place, because that 68 points was based on how many candidates? There were 4 candidates. But if you eliminate the winner, if you cross C off, now there's only 3 candidates. First place votes are now worth how much? 3. The points all change. Everything changes. So we're not going to do it. But I just want to make sure you're aware that it's not as simple as just, 69 and then 68 and then 59 and 54. The numbers will change once you eliminate the winner. I'm not convinced that the rankings always stay the same. No, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying, yes, you do Borda. I'm just saying we're not going to do it here because of time. But you've ranked the candidate, you find your winner. We got our winner here. Who is it? It's C. And now we eliminate C. So all of these C's get crossed off in the table. But now first place votes are worth 3 points instead of being 4 points. And so we have to. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We are, and that's what recursive methods do, is they change the data set, and it may or may not change the order that we saw up above. Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know if I don't know that the fairness criteria talk about anything other than the winner, but perhaps there are like extended fairness ranking type criteria that apply to, you know, the ranking shouldn't change if you do this or that. Yeah. Okay, so let's do the one that we skipped, recursive plurality with elimination. Ashley had suggested we skip the pairwise comparisons. She should have suggested we skip this one, because this is by far the worst one out of all 8 methods that we're doing today. I say this hoping that you don't take a nap for the next 6 minutes. I am not going to test you on this particular one. But that is not a reason to just shut down for the next 6 minutes. Stay with me. Push yourself a little bit as we work through. Okay, first thing I want to do is maybe grab a copy of that preference schedule so we can have it here on this page. So I'm going to erase some stuff and then grab this. You guys are going to have to do some kind of flipping back and forth with the pages. Let's capture. That is not what's supposed to happen. Go away. Can I jump over here for a second? Excuse me. Okay, recursive plurality with elimination. You see plurality, what are we doing first? First place votes. We've done it already. A, B, C, and D. It is still 10, 4, 8, and 3. Who's the winner? A. Is that right? This is plurality with elimination. A is the winner? We don't have a majority, right? Plurality with elimination means you have to eliminate until we get a majority winner. And we've done this already. We can skip some stuff because we've already done today with that particular table plurality with elimination. Here was the first round. Who gets eliminated with the fewest number of votes was D. We retabulated the votes. Do we have a majority yet? No. Who gets eliminated? B. We retabulated. And who had the majority? C. So we did that whole thing one time to find the winner. First place is C. So we're going to hide some of the labor here. We'll say ... C wins from the previous page. And by virtue of winning, what do we do with C in this big table? We eliminate them, but for a good reason. We're going to put smiley faces around the C. Okay, so all of the C's are happy. They got first place. We're done with C. But this is the recursive method, which means we have to do something again. In fact, the word recur in the beginning doesn't mean to do again and again. So we have to run a new election with those 3 people that are left in this table. Justin. C won by lots of work that we did already and didn't feel like doing again. It was this whole thing that we did to find the winner. That whole thing. Okay. All right. So C is the winner, and we now do plurality with elimination again. And so all that we're counting here is first place votes. A, B, and D only. So go ahead and tabulate first place votes. Should still add up to 25. How many does A have? Still 10. B? B has now 8, and D has 7. Any questions on those numbers? So I'll just put this and then we'll erase it, but we're looking for first place votes only, which is straight across the top unless the top has been eliminated. So those are the votes that we were looking at here. First place. Okay. Did A just win? No. What do we need to do? We need to eliminate. We don't have a majority yet. Majority is still 13. So we're eliminating D by virtue of not having enough there last place. But when I eliminate D, should I give D a smiley face? No. D is not happy to be eliminated. C was happy to be eliminated. They won. So I'm just going to put a line which will temporarily get rid of all of my D's. This is why this method is so tricky, is because you eliminate from the top when you finally have a winner, but to get the winner, you have to eliminate from the bottom temporarily. It's really, really a mess. Let's look at first place votes only here. I'll try highlighting again. First place, all those. In the next column, who is the first place winner? It's B, we're way down there. In the next column, also B. In the last column, also B. First place, it's not as easy as reading across the top row anymore. You have to look pretty far to find the first place sometimes. Alex, did you have a? Okay. So counting those first place votes. So we'll say down here, we eliminated, who did we eliminate? D, which left A and B. How many first place votes for A? 10. And for B, 15. Do we have a majority? Yes. So B wins. What does B win? Second place. B wins second place. Phil? Well, so it's a good question. So once you have somebody's place fixed, like B is now second place, what do you do with them? You eliminate them, but for a good reason. And then what happens to D that was crossed off before? They're coming back. I think we need to run a new election. Okay, so let's get rid of some stuff here. So first place highlights can go away. And then we're eliminating B because they just got second place. So we'll give them some stars. Good job for B. And then we said that we were doing what with D? We have to bring them back. D was eliminated from the race for second place. But yeah, but they still need to have a position. The only positions we have so far are which letters? C is the winner. B is second place. I still need to rank the last two folks. So D, I put a little line through it to kind of help me remember that they're just temporarily out. They're out in the middle of this big process, but they come back. It's really tricky, isn't it? It's a lot to keep track of because you're eliminating from the top when somebody wins, but in the middle of trying to find a winner, you eliminate from the bottom, and then you bring them back. Okay, let's look at these two candidates. I want first place votes again, so I'm going to highlight in blue. Who's the first place winner in the next column? It's A in the next one, D, and then D, and then D. So we're counting first place votes. So what do we have here? So this is now the last time we have to do this. A versus D. What's the score? 14, 11. Is there a majority? You bet. So who wins? A wins. And by virtue of winning, what did they really win? They win third. Yes, Emma. When you say the lesser one, can you tell me which one? Yeah, okay, so but 15 was bigger, right? So we did pick the majority winner there with 15 to 10. Yeah. I don't think that happened. I think as soon as we have a majority, we have our winner. But I do think that you're lost, and I don't blame you for being lost because it's just a very strange thing to eliminate from the top and from the bottom and for different reasons. Yeah.
So this produced the same result.
So let's write the ranking. So who's first? C, and then B, and then A, and then D. Yes, Emma.
So we eliminated B to 7, where B was 8.
Yes. Because so we have these votes, 10, 8, and 7, and it feels like you have your winner. Who's the winner? Feels like A. If we're just doing plurality, you're absolutely right. A is the winner. In order to win plurality, you just need more than anybody else. But in order to win plurality with elimination, you need to have a majority. And we don't stop until we get a majority. And so here, even though somebody has more than anybody, they don't have 13, which is what a majority would be here. So if you have to eliminate somebody, who would it be? It's going to be D. And so we eliminated D. I put lines through the D's, and then I recounted. A and B is no longer 10-8 because D's votes go somewhere. And that's the updated vote, the 10-15. Alex. Not true. Like if we're just doing plurality, who's the winner? A. A has more votes than anyone. But if we do this recursive plurality with elimination, as Alex points out, A goes from a seeming first place victory to third place. The plurality method has some definite weaknesses. Okay. So I will repeat, I'm not going to test you on that method. You're welcome. It's really so that I don't have to grade the mess that you guys would hand in. Yeah, okay. All right, let's take a look at 11, and who are we now? Barry.
As we've seen, recursive remove then run the election again. The winner of the new election, then they are removed the election again. Third place.
Okay, so how many kinds of rankings do we have? Like broad classes of rankings? We had two. We have two different ways to rank our candidates. You can do the extended, where you just run the election once and then pick the ranking naturally. I didn't even have to describe how we were going to rank. I just said, how would you rank? And for example, if we're looking up here in this list of red numbers, who's first? A. Who's second? C. Third is B. And then fourth is D. That's the extended method. You run the election how many times? Just once, and you rank them in a natural way. The recursive method is the one that Mary just read about, and it's what Ashley had said a little while ago. You run the election, you find your winner, you cross off your winner, and then you run the whole election again. And you find a new winner who gets crossed off, and you run the election again. Alex. It's a good question, and you're kind of getting into what Phil had asked about the fairness criteria. I don't know if we have like ranking fairness criteria. I'm assuming that there are such things out there. But really the point for me to show you this is to recognize that there are two kind of reasonable ways to rank our candidates. Like you do the natural thing, which everybody wanted to do from the start, but you know, eliminating the winner and then just running a new election is a natural thing to do. Seems reasonable. But as Jason pointed out, the outcomes that we got oftentimes were completely different from the outcomes we had the first way we did it. So I don't have an answer to your question about is it more fair or is it to our advantage to do it one way or the other? Just pointing out different outcomes depending on how you do it. How so?
If you were to turn around and say, where you wanted to eliminate tactical voting, where dictatorship or the whole
Random.
random system, if you didn't put out how you're going to count those votes.
Mhm.
And you were say not really morally sound. You could be open to running the election through several different counting methods and then possibly being paid off to go with, oh, well, we went with this method to count. And for anybody who didn't understand how these methods work, you could run it out and say, see, it's completely fair.
Yeah.
This is how so-and-so won.
Right.
When if you did it, or where the rankings would count because they would be positions
Mhm.
just by whether you did extended or recursive, you could change the outcome of whether somebody was like vice president or treasurer.
Right. Right. Yeah. So definitely, if we don't know what's happening before the vote happens, then there is the potential for that corruption. Yeah. That's right. Call it while it's in the air. Okay, let's just see a little bit about this guy, Arrow. Remember, Arrow's impossibility theorem said that there's no way to count the votes that satisfies all four of these things for every election. That's what it said. So I think we're up to Jason.
Here's a little info on J. Arrow.
That page.
Yep. One of the most prominent economic theorists, J. Arrow, has made fundamental contributions to physics. Most of them concentrated around neo-Walrasian general theory, of which he considered primary effects.
Yeah, I have no idea what that means, but apparently it's important, and he's one of the founding fathers of this branch of economics. One thing I just want to point out, if you've spent a lot of time studying algebra, you are studying stuff that is at least hundreds of years old, and some of the things you are studying are thousands of years old. But this is current. I mean, this is about as current as you'll see, just in terms of like studying math. Like to get current, oftentimes you gotta like study for years and years and years to figure out what's really happening currently. This guy is alive and well, and this theorem that he came out with, I don't know exactly when it came out. I'm just going to put out there in the 1970s, but I don't know, like, don't quote me on that. But it is fairly recent, the math that we are looking at right now, which I think is kind of nice. All right, so let me tell you what the plan is for next class. Next class, we are reviewing for the test. Can you guys go to page 38, and I will just point out some of the resources you have available to you in terms of studying for the test. When is the test? 1 week from today. Tuesday of next week is the test. On page 38, you see this thing called study guide for test number 1. It starts with a list of things that I would like you to be able to do. This is like an active list. You put check marks next to the things that you can do, question marks where there are things that you need to kind of study and review. But there's a list of all the kinds of things I want you to be able to do. I'd encourage you to read through it. Down here at the bottom is a list of resources for the test. How do you go about studying for a test? You've never seen one of my tests before. Well, you're going to look over the chapter 1 in the textbook. That's all about the voting stuff. I gave you a couple of photocopied handouts, units 3A and 3B they were called. We've had lots of homework problems and lots of group activities at the ends of classes. And there's also lots of problems in the book that I didn't assign, but there's plenty of practice there. And then there's the sample test problems, which we'll look at. And just one note, you are able to bring in a 1-page reference sheet into the test with you, where you can put anything you want. So you can put an example of the recursive Boredom method if you want to just write it all out. You can put definitions, you can put theorems, you can put like lyrics to your favorite song if that will inspire you during the test. Whatever you want to put, one piece of paper, front and back, 8.5 by 11. Okay. What's that? I don't know what it's called. Is that what it's called? It's a regular paper. One of those, yes. Okay. All right. Sample test problems. Yeah, I only learned recently that the paper in Europe is a little bit differently sized than it is here. Yeah. Okay, so sample test problems. When we come in on Thursday for our review period, we can talk about any questions that we kind of have as a group, but probably I'll be content to let folks work in their groups, your tables with these problems right here. If you're able to look at these problems before you come to class, then you can come to class and say, I'm stuck on number 4. but it's okay if you don't have a chance between now and then. This is what we'll be spending most of our time doing next class. And I think I mentioned the whole idea of the videos that I made of these problems. Did I mention that? Did I? Well, maybe I didn't. Did I mention the videos I made for these sample test problems? All right, I will say it again just in case I didn't say it before. I have made a video of me solving every one of these sample test problems. They are currently posted on Moodle. If you just go to Moodle, you'll find the URL that you need to type in to access this. I am also in process of trying to get these videos up on YouTube, and I'm hoping that I'll have an address I can share with you. YouTube would then get rid of all the issues that some folks are having trying to open the videos, especially Mac users, I think, have been having some difficulty getting to the videos. So hopefully we'll bring it to you next time with the YouTube links. Okay, see you guys on Thursday.